And talking of escalations, Russia has started using a powerful new monster bomb in battleground Ukraine. It is called the FAB-1500, not the FAB-500. We know Russia has already dropped them on Ukraine. I'm specifically talking about FAB-1500, a giant new glide bomb. It is heavier, meaner, and more dangerous. It has dramatically boosted Russia's effectiveness in the Ukraine war. And according to reports, Moscow can thank this new bomb for its recent successes in the battleground. So what is this new powerful weapon all about, and what really does it mean for the Ukraine war? Let me tell you, along with Russian drones, missiles, artillery, these glide bombs have added a whole new destructive firepower to Russia's campaign in eastern Ukraine. Remember Russia's conquest of the city of Avdiivka? Its first major victory in nearly a year. It was all thanks to FAB-1500. This bomb is so big and so heavy, it can create a crater 15 meters wide. You heard that right. Russia has been able to convert the Soviet-era weapon into what is probably one of the most destructive weapons in its arsenal. Western reports, in fact, saying it is yet another example of how Russia inflicts massive destruction before trying to take territory. Just take a look at the videos from the battlefield. These videos shared by the Russian Defense Ministry are proof of the immense power of these bombs. Russia has dropped these bombs on Ukraine's thermal power plants, factories, tower block. In short, Russia has dropped these bombs on sites which the Ukrainians use to coordinate their defenses. Let's just tell you more about the FAB-1500. It is a glide bomb weighing 1,500 kilograms. That's 3,000 pounds. The pop-out wings basically allow the bomb to glide towards the target. It can be airdropped by a jet from a distance of 60 to 70 kilometers. It delivers very serious and guaranteed damage. The Ukrainians also have their own glide bombs, but they just weigh 500 pounds. So in comparison, the Russian munition is a giant. It is so bulky that one Russian fighter jet can only haul 2 of them at a time. They can be dropped from the air from a distance of some 60 to 70 kilometers, which is out of range of many Ukrainian air defenses. The question is, can Ukraine counter these Russian bombs? And the short answer to that is no, because the most effective counter to this Russian menace is still a long way off. You see, Ukraine still does not have the most coveted American fighter jets, the F-16s. Experts say that these bombs offer Russia a new and far more destructive strike capability. It also helps Russian pilots stay away when they drop these bombs on Ukrainian targets. The use of these bombs becoming a critical element in the Russian offensive in Donetsk, in fact. And with the use of these bombs, Russia was able to raze to the ground Ukraine's defenses in and around Avdiivka. During the Battle of Avdiivka, Russia had dropped hundreds of these bombs on the city. Russian military bloggers began referring to this weapon last September when its accuracy was reportedly being tested. They talked about how the bomb had accurately hit its target for the first time. It is said that these heavy bombs are accurate to within 5 meters. And then within a few weeks, both Ukrainian and Russian reports referred to the use of a massive bomb. They were reportedly used in Ukraine's Kherson and Kharkiv. And then in January, the Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu was seen touring the plant of the JSC Tactical Missiles Corporation. It is a major arms manufacturer in the Moscow region. A video shared by the Russian Defense Ministry said that the company had developed a high-precision munition, converting old free-fall bombs into weapons that would glide to their target. So here's the bottom line. Do not underestimate Russian glide bombs. The Ukrainians have their own smaller glide bombs, yet they fear the giant Russian bombs. The Ukrainian air defenses just do not have the range to hit Russian jets carrying these bombs if they are positioned 70 kilometers away. Ukraine needs Western fighter jets and long-range weapons. Ukrainian pilots are currently training on F-16 combat aircraft, but they may not deploy to Ukraine until the second half of the year. And as far as long-range weapons are concerned, the American Patriot missile system is one of the few defenses with the range to counter this threat. And unfortunately, Ukraine has a limited number of Patriots left, and the missiles are in short supply due to delays in the US Congress passing further military aid. Ukrainian officials, including President Volodymyr Zelensky, have consistently appealed for longer-range air defense weapons to thwart the Russian aerial threat. Possessing these would significantly enhance Ukraine's ability to counter the Russian bomb menace. The longer the West delays, the stronger Russia's bombing capabilities become. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces, particularly in Donetsk, face a barrage of over 100 Russian airstrikes a day. Similar to previous artillery attacks, the Russians now deploy an apparently endless supply of devastating bombs, leaving Ukrainian forces defenseless and shelterless. Will there be more Avdiivkas for Ukraine because of this? We won't be surprised if that happens. Did Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi help avert a nuclear war? Did he stop Russia from dropping a nuclear bomb on Ukraine? Did Prime Minister Modi help prevent what could have triggered a nuclear catastrophe? The answer is yes, and this has been revealed by American media. Let's just tell you what this is all about. An explosive report by CNN details what was kept under wraps for so long. Secret preparation for a nuclear war had started, even as the deadly roller coaster of war threw all sides into the dangerous realms of uncertainty in the year 2022. America began preparations for a nuclear war. Officials were acting upon 1. Intelligence, and 2. Analysis. Number 3, the developments. The story starts in the second half of 2022. Ukraine's counteroffensive was yielding results. Its troops were advancing towards Kherson. Russian units were in danger of virtual annihilation. In America, there was a fear that a possible bloodbath of Russian troops in Kherson could nudge Putin into pressing the nuclear button. Some officials in the US were convinced that Vladimir Putin would not view the fall of Kherson as just a battle lost in a long war. For Putin, Russia's loss of Kherson would be personal. He could possibly see it as a threat to the Russian state. You see, Russian nuclear doctrine is clear. The use of nuclear weapons is justified if enemy troops enter Russian territory and seem on victory roll. By logical extension, Russia can resort to the use of nuclear weapons if the existence of Russia is threatened. Would the fall of Kherson qualify as an extreme threat is the question. American officials were asking themselves this very question in late 2022, not too long after Putin and Biden's Geneva summit. There, the two leaders, remember, had reiterated the Gorbachev-Reagan statement, a nuclear war cannot be won and must never be fought. But you see, things had rapidly changed since, and they changed for the worse, by the way. From Western leaders to nuclear experts, everyone was sitting up in their chairs and closely watching. Many a times, they were trying to double-guess Russia's next big move. Some American officials, in fact, were also pointing at a possible false flag. In October 2022, Russia's defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, had made a series of phone calls. He had told defense officials in the United States, the UK, France, Turkey about the possibility that Ukraine could use a certain dirty bomb. A letter was also sent from Russia to the United Nations. It detailed basically the threat posed by this dirty bomb. It spoke about the possibility that Ukraine could detonate such a bomb against Russian forces and then blame the attack on the Kremlin. In America, the dirty bomb narrative was seen as a Russian pretext to launch a possible nuclear strike. You know, a false flag. What you had on ground in Washington was high tension. So then what did the US do? Tap India. Let me read out what the CNN report said. The US sought to enlist the help of non-allies, in particular India, to discourage Russia from such an attack. The report says the outreach and public statements by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi helped avert a crisis. Let me repeat that. The outreach and public statements by the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi helped avert a crisis. In other words, Prime Minister Modi helped avert a possible nuclear war. Do you see America's tail tucked firmly between its legs? Because I do. And this is the same Biden administration that tried to basically force India to condemn Russia. It failed. It tried to arm twist India into taking a side in the Ukraine war, failed again. In the public, you see, the US was maintaining composure. On the 28th of February 2022, let me see that again. On the 28th of February 2022, US President Joe Biden was asked whether US citizens should be concerned about the start of a nuclear war. No, replied Biden. And the same day, then White House Press Secretary said, and I'm quoting here, "At this time, we see no reason to change our nuclear alert levels." By March 2022, the US had changed its tone. On the 25th of March, to be precise, the US National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan had said, "The potential nuclear weapon use is something we do have to be concerned about." What was it doing about it? Secretly, the US was relying on Indian diplomacy to avert a crisis. It was relying on Prime Minister Modi's rapport with Vladimir Putin to stop the potential use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. This is yet another failure of the American diplomacy, also a big victory for Indian diplomacy, and above all, the diplomacy of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. You see, from the very beginning of this war, Prime Minister Modi has been focusing on solutions, not politics. India has not been in support of villainizing or alienating either parties. Instead, it has been pushing for dialogue. It has been pushing for peace. Days after returning from his state visit in the US, Prime Minister Modi dialed Putin. He called for dialogue and diplomacy to end the war. When the last leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, was accepting his 1991 Nobel Prize, he said, and I'm quoting, "The risk of global nuclear war has practically disappeared." The Ukraine war proved otherwise. In the last 2 years, we've seen the nuclear word being thrown around. Rather, February 24, 2022, that was the day it all really started. And that day, Russia invaded Ukraine. In April 2022, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said, "We should not wait for the moment when Russia decides to use nuclear weapons. We must prepare for that." But who, amidst all this escalation, is preparing for peace? The West is busy arming and rearming Ukraine. It is setting the stage for a prolonged war. Countries are modernizing their military, preparing for a possible World War III. Weapon companies are the happiest. Their sales are skyrocketing. And amid all of this, India is trying to talk peace. Since this story about Prime Minister Modi's role in the dousing of the fire of a possible nuclear war was broken by the US media, I'll end with something that the Indian Prime Minister had told a US daily with regard to the Ukraine war during his state visit to the US. Some people say that we are neutral, but we are not neutral. We are on the side of peace. The Muslim holy month of Ramadan begins today. It's supposed to be a joyous time. People of Muslim faith celebrate it with their friends and family members. They pray, they fast. But the people of Gaza hardly have any reason to celebrate, and they have already been fasting, starving rather, because there is no food. Let alone something special for iftar. Many are surviving on flat bread cooked over wood fires and tinned goods sent in humanitarian aid. At least 20 in northern Gaza have died from malnutrition and dehydration. Vulnerable children in the south are also affected. Half a kg of sugar now costs $10. Salt is almost unobtainable. Fresh fruit or vegetables, a luxury. There are no decorations either. The neighborhoods that used to be adorned with lights and lanterns now stand deserted or have been reduced to rubble altogether. All that the people of Gaza have are dilapidated tents in refugee camps, and that too if they are lucky. Many are mourning the death of their loved ones. Others are mourning separation. Families have been split up. Some who managed to escape to Rafah had to leave their loved ones behind for one reason or the other. Just yesterday, as Palestinians prepared for the holy month ahead, they were met with fresh airstrikes. At least 1 died in Rafah, 10 in Khan Yunis, 10 in the west of Gaza City. Yes, this is how they began the month of Ramadan, with bomb strikes. And it's not just the strikes. As I said, the besieged Palestinian territory is also dealing with a humanitarian crisis. Arab states as well as the US have been airdropping life-sustaining supplies, but it is doing little to actually improve the situation. Most of the supplies miss their intended drop-off point. Many even fall into the sea. Some food packages smash open on impact. But Palestinians are in a desperate state. They have no other choice than to scramble and pick through dirt to get some food on their plates. Listen to their plight yourself.
We went to Nablus roundabout to get some flour, but we didn't get it, so we came here for some airdrop supplies. But look what ended up happening with the aid airdropped to us by Arab countries.
I have been here a week but only got 3 cans. This place is isolated from the outside world and has poor transportation. Most of the supplies have fallen into the sea. Honestly, we got nothing, and we wanted better aid methods than airdrops.
The UN has already sent out a warning. At least 576,000 people in Gaza are one step away from famine. And that makes up a quarter of its over 2 million population. Aid is failing to reach those in need. A UAE-funded ship carrying 200 tons of food for Gaza remained docked in a Cyprus port. But how will it reach Gaza? The strip has no port infrastructure. The US has promised to build a temporary pier to facilitate the aid deliveries. The US Army, in fact, has dispatched a logistics ship carrying equipment for the same. But how long will that take, and what happens until then? The situation is dire, to say the least. Palestine is devastated. Still, some Palestinians are trying to keep the hope alive. Hundreds gathered in Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque compound to take a look at Ramadan's crescent moon. The worshippers also took part in the evening prayers. But that's about it. Palestine is shrouded in gloom. The festivities have been reduced to prayers. Here's what some of the residents of the West Bank have to say.
Unfortunately, there is low turnout. No one is buying. There is no joy for Ramzan this year. We wait for Ramzan annually, but because of the situation, the turnout is bad. People do not even want to buy anything. No one is decorating.
Ramadan this year comes as Palestinians are living in a tragic situation, massacres, war against humanity. So in Hebron's municipality, we decided to mark Ramadan with religious rituals only and prohibit all celebrations and decorations of streets.
In Rafah, surprisingly, people are trying to keep their spirits up. Displaced Palestinians decorated their tents. Children held up Ramadan lanterns. Others hung balloons while singing songs.
Ramadan is a blessed month despite the fact this year is not like every year. But we are steadfast and patient, and we will welcome the month of Ramadan as usual, with decorations, songs, with prayers and fasting. Next Ramadan, we wish for Gaza to come back. Hopefully, all the destruction and siege taking place in Gaza will change, and all will come back in a better shape.